Hey guys, and welcome back to a new web video. My name is Salud and today we're talking about changes that if done could make the maps feel a lot better in my opinion. We will go in alphabetical order, so we'll start in Basrah and finish in Yehorivka, and I will be mentioning what changes to make in each individual map. If you want to skip a certain map, you will have timestamps in the video, so you can easily skip from one to another. So let's get started. We're gonna start with Basrah, so we can see here the map, the vehicles that will be on the map, both armored and logistics, and the radio radius. If some vehicles aren't available on that set map, it will appear crossed. And if the radio radius changes, I will also make it clear there. So starting off with this map, we can say that this map is one of the oldest squad maps in the game. This map comes all the way back from Project Reality. So we can say that this map is very simplistic in how it's designed. And for that reason, it might feel a little bit better on the invasion layers, but it can feel a little bit dull in other layers such as RAAS. And in the end up, the simplicity means that this map ends up being a main camping fest. So for the changes, if you are not aware, there's a remake of the map called Factory that makes the map a lot better in my opinion. It makes it bigger, it creates new zones, new points of interest, new villages, more cover, and overall more fun to play for both infantry and armor. So I think using this remake version into the actual Al-Basra and converting that to the new Al-Basra would be a lot better to play. Next up, we're going to go with Anvil. And Anvil is a map that I have a lot of mixed feelings with, mainly because it's big for no reason. It has two canyons in the north and the south that are completely underused. They have no villages, no towns, nothing. They are just empty roads that create nothing to the gameplay. So for my changes, it's really simple. Removing those canyons completely out of the playable area will create a much better experience. But due to the removal of those canyons, the map size gets reduced significantly. So for that reason, we'll have to remove both helicopters and tanks and IFVs and leave it to just light armored vehicles and APCs to be the main armor for the map. But making these changes wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, because making a more linear map would be better for those looking for a more infantry friendly experience, and that has been erased from the game with the addition of more armor and bigger maps, which could be a good thing. A map similar to Chora or Sumari could be a great experience. Next up, we have Belaya, and Belaya is a map that is really fun to play. There is a lot of everything, and you can play at any playstyle. You can play armor, you can play infantry, and it just works really well. My only complaint on this map is that maybe removing helicopters would be beneficial, because I feel like the impact that helicopters can have is minimal due to the forest areas, and really there's nowhere to land. So, and let's continue with Chora. Chora is a map that works really well, and it just flows and it feels good to play on, both infantry and armor. And it's just a small little map that you can have a lot of fun on. I have a lot of great experiences in Chora, playing everything, and I wouldn't change anything necessarily on this map. Next up is Fallujah, and Fallujah is one of these maps that I really dislike in the game. Just because they want to have armor when it's not possible to have armor in this map. Like, the streets are hard to traverse, you get stuck everywhere, and it's not fun to play armor on. So my changes would be to completely remove that armor part and remove those open areas on the northern side, and just let the infantry go, because I think it's a really good map for infantry that can be really fun, but it's a nightmare to play with armor. So just remove any type of armor, leave it to light vehicles only, and I think it could work really well. Next up, we have a map that is also really old from the OG squad, and that's Fush Road. And I don't have much to say about this map. I think this map is old, it's just a forest, it has no points of interest, and I don't find it fun to play. So I think the best idea, taking into account the amount of maps that we have, is to cut it completely from the game and just remove it. I think it brings nothing to the table, nothing interesting either way, so why not remove it completely? And let's continue with Goose Bay, and I think Goose Bay is a map that works really well for everything. It works well for armor, it works well for infantry, it works well on invasion, on RAAS. It's just a really good map, and it's one of the better additions they made in the last years. So I wouldn't change anything on it, obviously. Continuing Goose Bay, we have also a really good map that is as Goose Bay, a really overall well-designed map. It has open fields for armor, it has good places to go with infantry, and it just works really, really well on every single game mode. So no, I wouldn't change anything on Gorodok, of course. And next up we have Kamdesh. And Kamdesh is a map that I really dislike because same as Full Source, it brings nothing to the table. I feel it's really boring map to play. It's just basically a forest. And I will scrap this map completely, but in order to make some changes, my only change that I can possibly give this map is to remove the ability to have tanks on this map, because tanks in these maps are essentially useless. Just give it to APCs and IFVs and that's it. And obviously remove helicopters. There are some layers where helicopters are available, especially on Invasion, and I feel like helicopters on this map is pretty much useless because you cannot land anywhere. Kohat is one of those maps that is not very good for infantry, but I really enjoy it. And my only concern with this map is that in some invasion layers, for some reason, you have tanks. And I would remove tanks completely. I think they have no use on this map. It's a map for tows, it's a map for IFVs, and I don't think it fits the map at all, so just remove them. Next up is Kokan, and Kokan is a map that I really enjoy, but I feel in some layers having IFVs, especially for the MEA, it's pointless because BMP ones don't work on this map. So if you completely remove BMP ones from this map, I think everything else is perfect. So I wouldn't change anything from it. It has good infantry gameplay, specifically good infantry gameplay, and I think it could work really well for APCs. Next up is Lashkar Valley, and I think this map suffers the same problem from Anvil. A map that is too big for what it should be. So my changes are going to go in the same line as Anvil, and that is removing these hilly areas from the side and just focusing on the middle of the map, on the river. I think following the river, it just flows. It just flows great, and it would be nice for just APC and light vehicle combat and no helicopters, and it would be super fun for infantry, and I feel it would be a very popular map if it would be this way. Logar Valley is also a map that is very, very old from the game, but I think it works really, really well in certain game modes. I think Invasion doesn't work at all, and my second problem with this map is that as it is very small, the 400-meter radio radius, it just doesn't work. So it should be cut down to 200, and by that I think the game will work a lot better and the games will be a lot more fun. Next up, let's go with Manic. And Manic is a map that I will enjoy a lot more if it was flatter. Let me explain. Right now, I think the altitude difference from the middle of the map to the sides of the map, it's huge. And by making it a little bit more flat, it will make the game feel so much better. Next up we have Mestia, and Mestia is a map that I kinda enjoy sometimes, but I think it would be much more fun if you removed APCs completely from this map and leave it to just light vehicles and infantry. Mutaha, another great addition to the game. I think it brings a lot of changes. It has a really condensed central part for infantry gameplay and a really good outskirts for armor gameplay that it just works good. But my only complaint with this map is just the terrain on the northern part. It just gives the southern team the ability to main camp with a lot of ease. So my changes to it would be to reduce the terrain on this orange area on the right and increase it on the right area of the map. So it will create like a dune to defend that main from main camping, and it will decrease the ability to place toes on that tall area. And another great map, Narva. Narva is a map that works, and my only change will be to remove tanks from this map. It's an urban map, and I think tanks don't really fit in here. And by removing them, I think the gameplay would be a little bit better. Let's continue with Skorpo, and this is the map that I want to change the most. I feel this is the map that uses its terrain to the worst of its abilities. And to start with, I think the areas that the map is played the most is the areas that the map is worst at. I don't like the hilly areas on the western side of the map, and I think the eastern side of the map should be more used to its purpose because I think the gameplay would be so much better there. So my changes, I have two changes here, or two options rather. My first option is to just focus on the eastern part more. You have this TC layer that I think would be really fun to play, and nobody plays it. But my idea is to have flags on this area more. And the other change is just to use these islands to the north a little bit more and removing these hilly areas on the western side too. Just creates a really interesting dynamic. Or could you have flags north of the water and south of the water, and it could only be accessed by amphibious vehicles and boats and things like that, and it could create a really interesting dynamic. I don't know why they haven't used them. And as a side note, I will also remove tanks from this layer. I think amphibious vehicles and IFVs and APCs will work best on this layer, as well as helicopters. Next up, Sumari. And Sumari is a map that is similar to Logar Valley, but smaller. So my change would be similar. I wouldn't change the infantry combat. I think it works really well and it's really fun. But my biggest problem is with the radius of the radio. You can only place a radio 400 meters away, which doesn't create a good gameplay and will only be able to create one or even two radios. And by reducing that to half, to 200 meters, it could create a better gameplay for this specific map. And also for obvious reasons, I will completely scrap Invasion from this layer. It just doesn't work. It becomes a main camping fest and it's insanely funny to play this layer. I don't know if you ever played this layer, but if you did, you know what I'm talking about. And lastly, to finish, we have two maps that they just really work. Tallil is a armor fest, and it's not really infantry focused, but we gotta have some maps like this too in the game. And I feel for armor, it just works. So obviously, I wouldn't change anything. And finally, we have Jiho, and in my opinion, Jiho is the greatest squad map. Like it has everything, it works for everything, armor, infantry, any game mode, it just works. And yeah, obviously I wouldn't change anything on this map either. So this has been it, guys. If you like this type of content, even though it's different, I think I wanted to make this type of videos. You will have gameplays tomorrow, so don't worry about it. And yeah, if you stick this long, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want more armor content.